Hello, witches,
Yeah.
wizards, and muggles. Welcome to Bookworms.
Boo.
I'm your host, Alex.
And I'm Joe.
And Joe, the people want to know, which house do you belong to?
Gryffindor.
Gryffindor. Hey!
And what house do you belong to, Alex?
I'm a Ravenclaw, baby.
That sounds about right. A nobody.
That's how we should start this whole thing, is like do one of those Facebook quizzes. Figure out which Hogwarts house we belong in.
I actually have done those, and every time I wind up in Gryffindor.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Is it because you're strong and brave and handsome and people count you out, but in reality, you're the hero of your story?
Pretty much. That's pretty accurate. I mean, you did forget a couple of attributes, but we can skip over those. They're pretty minor, like just
Lightning
perfect
bolt
at
scar.
everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Thick glasses held together by tape.
No, that was you.
Oh, yeah. 20/20 vision, baby.
That's it. Kind of weak.
I can see through fucking walls, all right.
Anyways, let's get to the show here. People don't want to hear about all this bullshit.
Yeah, so welcome to Bookworms, bonus Bookworms.
Yeah, we have another book recommendation from the same person that recommended the last book.
Yeah, let me just go back and talk about how great that book was. The greatest thing since sliced bread? Might it be the greatest thing since sliced bread?
Yeah, they definitely won on that pick, and we went with their second pick, and, well, if we had started with this one, we probably wouldn't have gone to sliced bread.
Yeah, she is. This person has quickly won the race to zero credibility. We are talking, of course, about our bonus book of the month,
Come
Beyond
on,
the
Alex.
Wand. Beyond the Wand, The Magic and Mayhem of Growing Up a Wizard by Tom Felton.
Or Draco Malfoy.
Draco Malfoy, as he only mentions about 10,000 times in this book that he plays Draco Malfoy.
I mean, being that that's most of his childhood, it does kind of make sense.
I
And
suppose.
that's what most of the people are buying this book for, is to hear him say, I was Draco Malfoy.
Yeah, it's just like, I was reading this book and I was like picturing like the people that would be excited about a memoir like this, and it's just like, like it's either like the teenage the child who's like still obsessed with Harry Potter, or the people our age who are still obsessed with the millennials who grew up with Harry Potter. Like, I gotta find out if Tom Felton and Alan Rickman got along.
Or just, I kept picturing all the fangirls for the like Comic-Cons that just dweeb out in their witches' robes over all the characters.
There's nothing wrong with playing a little dress up. It's fine.
Just because your old roommate used to dress you up in weird clothes, Alex.
We don't talk about him.
So yeah, let's get into it.
Yep. So Tom Felton, I think he's like your age, isn't he?
Around our age. I don't know.
I think he's a little bit older than I am, so I think he's about your age.
Okay, that
Old.
would make sense, because I
Old
am
as
a little
fuck.
older than you are.
Yeah. So he's not
I
quite.
am the first brother.
Well, he's not quite. Well, he might be just about middle aged. He's probably got a couple gray hairs.
Yeah, he's actually the youngest brother out of his family. Oh, he had 3 older brothers.
Yeah. The first chapter he calls himself the runt of the litter, and very poorly describes his relationship with his family. It's a good time.
Yeah. So just a quick little bit here. This was probably ghostwritten, and by probably I mean most definitely, and it shows this was not. He didn't pick a good ghostwriter. Let's just say. So Alex nor I really enjoyed the book, and his ghostwriter did him no favors.
Yeah, I'm just about 100% sure that this was ghostwritten, which not necessarily the worst thing in the world.
I mean that most memoirs are ghostwritten.
Yeah, especially celebrity memoirs.
Yeah, which if you get a good ghostwriter, that's probably a bonus. That's because a lot of these writers or actors and other famous people, they aren't the greatest writers, and to pick their stories accurately and well, they hire someone, which makes sense. No bashing anyone that does ghostwriting.
Yeah, writing is a very difficult skill to learn, and writing
Just ask
well.
Alex.
Yeah, and writing well is very hard to do, and quite frankly, reading this memoir kind of gives himself away. Like, not once does he describe a passion for writing in this book. So the fact that this thing is even halfway competent, it's like it's like you seem to be more of like a go surfing or fishing kind of guy, which is great.
Yeah.
But this
it,
also reads like you sat down with a guy who interviewed you about your childhood for 4 hours and asked you questions like, what was Alan Rickman like? What was Maggie Smith like?
and
Who's your
again, we're more bashing the ghostwriter here because he just did a poor job at it. It wasn't a well done story. I think he did an accurate picture of Tom Felton, but I don't think it came off poor.
Yeah, it reads like one of those like Chuckle Fest Q&A sessions you might see at like a fantasy Comic-Con sort of thing where, they just, like Tom Felton's sitting on a panel and the audience is coming up and asking him questions to be like, was there a time when you were filming Harry Potter that you were really uncomfortable? And then he can tell the story about how Ralph Fiennes hugged him in the 7th movie and he was weirded out because that wasn't in the script, and like you can see his genuine discomfort, and he's chuckling the whole time. The audience is chuckling along. That's kind of like everything is very surface level in this book. It's all just humorous anecdotes with very minimal life lessons or really deep dives into who he was growing up.
Yeah, so probably bash this dead horse all day, so let's just kind of get into the chapter by chapter here, if you want to do that.
Yeah, I don't know if we have to go full chapter by chapter,
we'll
but we can
do chapters, like all of them. But
yeah, we can jump around like the.
Well, let's start with the introduction there. That was by Emma Watts, who probably is a decent writer.
Yeah, I know honestly next to nothing about Emma Watson except for the fact that she's out of the child actors in those movies, she's easily the most famous one.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I say she's probably the best, decent writer is because of her UN work that she does. So she's doing, I imagine, not all the writing, but a lot of the writing for her speeches and whatnot, and coming up with actual policies for better rights for women especially, but everyone around in the world. So she's definitely doing some good work, and her and Tom have a interesting relationship, I guess you could call it that.
Yeah, it sounds like they had crushes on each other when they were growing up and filming the movies together, and that just
never really
nothing
mounted
blossomed
to anything,
romantically.
But
yeah,
they became really tight friends.
Yeah, there's one of those special close friendships where it's just like you know someone completely and you're inseparable.
Yeah, they're kind of like siblings. I mean, they grew up on set together, didn't really have the ability to make other friends because they're, too famous to be able to just have a normal life. And Tom will keep mentioning, out of the group of kids, he was the least famous of them and could actually almost have a normal life, where Dan, Emma, and what's Ron's real name?
Just call him Ron.
Ron, yeah.
Everyone does.
The three of them basically had to live separate from society because they were just too well known, too famous, too easily taken advantage of.
Yeah, Tom makes it clear that his filming schedule was a lot less rigid than The Warriors 3 from those movies. So he was able to kind of alternate between a filming movie star life and a normal life where he went to school and behaved poorly.
But talking about Emma Watson's introduction, I made a comment on my paper that it does amaze me how much these actors always like cringily gush over each other. Whether it's real or not. Yeah, I get they're trying to write. She's trying to write something nice about her friend who's written a book, or hired someone to write a book for him. But it's almost hard to take these intros seriously just because they are so over the top. I don't know. Have you read a lot of memoirs, Alex?
No, memoirs aren't really my thing.
Yeah, I had a quick phase of it because I had read a couple of good ones initially, and then Becky would have a bunch of memoirs around, and so I'd always I'll check it out. I like these other two memoirs, so see what this is, and then always just be severely disappointed. But yeah, it kind of said, just like, wow, this is almost so gushy it's fake. It's like it's scripted.
Yeah, she goes a little over the top with it. What does she say? Yeah, she says like, Tom, you're a poet. The way your mind works and the way you express things is beautiful, charming, funny, and warm. It's like, you didn't really read this book, did you?
Probably not.
I guess it is charming, and it's got like a charm to it. It's like we're slamming on it. It's harmless.
Yeah, this is the book that fans want, Tom Felton fans and just Harry Potter fans, they want this sort of thing. They don't want anything super deep, and they don't really want anything controversial to ruin their childhood memories of these stories and the movies.
Yeah, so and she doesn't really do the book justice in the introduction because at the ending we get like an actual, like, it feels like a real story of a time Tom was struggling. However, most of this is just absolute fluff and humorous anecdotes, and she's building it up to be this deep dive into the life of her best friend, which it's really not. It's very surface level almost the entire way through.
But yeah, and it's, as Alex has said, these anecdotes, they are fun. They are kind of quirky and for the most part. So yeah, we get into Tom's young life where he's the runt of the family, but he's praising his big brothers as the different attributes that he looked up to. So doing what everyone does is like, don't make sure you don't say anything too bad or too embarrassing about your relatives and friends. And
well, don't forget, chapter 1, he opens with time he was such a rapscallion he got arrested for shoplifting CDs.
Yeah, we all have that phase.
Yeah, he really dated himself with that one.
Yeah.
Now we just rip it offline.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got his older brothers. After that, he rewinds to when he's growing up a kid, and he's the youngest of 4, and he talks about his older brothers. One of them teaches a passion for art and expression. One teaches a passion for outdoors and nature, and one teaches him something else. I don't know, really.
Yeah, and he talks us about how he gained his interest in acting, which was kind of just something I want to try. He saw his oldest brother doing it on stage at a young age. That was kind of like, okay, so you can see where it came from. One thing that kind of peeved me though by the end of this book, and the little longer since reading it, which it's been a while, Alex. It's been a while. I'm making a comment about how slow Alex is at reading these books and then actually setting up a date to record.
Yeah, I finished it just like a few days ago. I don't know what you're talking about.
I've read this book like a month ago, so I'm going deep in the recesses of the memory here, trying to remember what this book is about. But anyways, just his lackadaisical attitude about his acting career. Like, he's just like, yeah, I can do it if I want to, but I really don't want to, and someone's really got to push me to do it, and it's just all whatever. And it's like, part of me is like, okay, good for you, guy. But the other part of me is like, dude, you literally have what most people dream of for a job, and you can't even have like the respect to say, yeah, I did it. I don't really like the fame bit or the acting bit, but whatever. I can just be a surfer pothead now.
Yeah, it's he does. I mean, he shows a lot of love for his family, but like sitting there in retrospect thinking, like, he's like talking about like bouncing through all his hobbies, and he had talk about how fortunate it was growing up in the life he had. It was kind of a charmed life because every time he had a new hobby, his parents would go out and
especially his mother.
His mother. His parents would go out and buy him a bunch of stuff to get into that hobby, and acting is the one that stuck. And his parents are going through a divorce, but they're still driving him to auditions, and they're getting him up on stage. They're getting him in front of cameras, and he starts getting bigger and bigger roles as he goes. And that's where we get one of our first anecdotes when he talks about the first time he was on stage and he had a actual spoken line and he missed his cue and he wound up bawling his eyes out.
Yeah, this was when he was like in elementary school, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. I found that one kind of funny.
Yeah. That's it, quirky stories. Again, one of the things that kind of pissed me off is his between, I get it, Harry Potter, he hadn't read the source material, no big deal. But he's going into all these auditions, not even knowing what his role is supposed to be, not having any idea where it's supposed to be coming from. And he makes it sound like, this is a bonus because I'm not going in there with preconceived notions of what I should be doing, and therefore I get these roles that I probably wouldn't have. But then he'll talk about like the one with Anthony Hopkins where he just completely bones the whole thing, and it's just like everyone's staring like, you're wasting our fucking time. What the fuck?
Yeah, and that's like, he talks about he goes to audition for Harry Potter and he's never read the books and he doesn't even know.
I still don't think he has read the books.
Doesn't even know what role he wants, and he goes in and he auditions and he gets a role. But yeah, then it's like, you think he'd learn a little bit about reading source material, because then he winds up a decade after those movies wrap up auditioning with Anthony Hopkins for a role that like involves Hannibal Lecter, which is his most famous character, and he has no idea who Hannibal Lecter is or anything about him.
Yeah, again, it's just like I get not want to go in over prepared because he had a lot of anecdotes about these child actors that went in over prepared and completely embarrassed themselves with what they thought the directors wanted. At the same time, it's like you got to have some baseline. You can't just go in cold.
Yeah, he also goes into a little bit like talking about like when he gets into the stuff about his addiction and whatnot, like the stress of having to go in and audition over and over again, and you kind of get numb to it, and it becomes stressful, and you're not achieving what your goal is to achieve, which I guess him was for a brief period of time was to become a big movie star, an A-lister, which he's like even with this role he's always been an actor, but like a movie star I don't think is something he would ever achieve. And like that was one of the reasons he'd fallen into drinking at the pub every night, was because he wasn't getting what he wanted out of his career.
He had the problem that he kind of mentioned it briefly. A lot of actors get where when you start playing these roles and you're not playing yourself, you start to forget who you are. And so that going to the pub every night was just kind of his way to try to get back to who he thought he should be. But then it started becoming a bit of a problem. Even though that was, we'll get a little bit later, I guess, because that's towards the end of the story. But it's like I had some issues with that story.
Yeah, I had some issues too with it.
What do you think about his anecdotes about the Harry Potter? Were there enough of them, Alex? Were there too many?
I mean, that's like 2/3 of the book.
Well, I mean, it is the main part of his career, but
so like the first sixth is like his family and his early acting roles, and the next sixth is his first movie, The Borrowers.
Did you watch
I saw that movie, and I honestly I could not tell you a single thing about it. He's like talking about being trapped in a giant jug of milk, and I like, when did that happen? It's like I saw this movie like not too long ago, and I don't remember anything about it.
Did you watch the documentary that? Well, fuck, what's his name? Parkinson's guy there.
Parkinson's guy. Yeah. Michael
Back
J.
to
Fox.
the Future.
Yeah,
Michael J. Fox. Yeah. Did you watch that documentary that he just put out?
No, I don't do documentaries.
What the fuck's wrong with you, Alex? Literally, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Do you want to know the last documentary I watched?
What?
Tiger King.
That's not a documentary, Alex. That is trash TV. At its finest, but that is trash TV. That is reality TV show.
Yeah, quick aside on Tiger King. That is like the epitome of like timely. So the world ended, and they're like, here's a TV show about a bunch of freaks. We're like, all right, well, maybe a pandemic's not such a bad thing.
But Michael J. Fox, he did kind of a documentary about his career. I mean, I've always been a major Michael J. Fox fan from as long as I have ever known him. I watched Spin City when I was like 8 years old, and I didn't have a clue what it was about, but I thought it was hilarious. And basically,
he just had a charm to him.
Yeah, and his, if you'd put it, say, in book form or this book into documentary form, like just the contrast. And so I was watched that documentary at the same time I was reading this book, and it's just like Michael J. Fox had such charisma, even with suffering through his Parkinson's, and and they're showing his just daily struggles even now. Getting through a day in a life of Michael J. Fox. That it's like just damn. The guy just Michael J. Fox basically admitted, I was a fucking asshole when I got super famous because I didn't know how to act, because how the hell do you handle being one of the biggest faces and names in the world? But even still, it's like, yeah, that's okay, because you're Michael J. Fox and you're fucking awesome.
Yeah, and he's got like really good anecdotes about filming some of his most famous movies, because like he almost actually, like that scene in Back to the Future 3 when they hang him, he actually almost got hung to death in that scene because the prop didn't work correctly.
Just his anecdote about getting on the first Back to the Future, where he's filming his TV show and he does some what movie was it? Some Werewolves in London. He did that one, right?
He did Teen Wolf.
Teen Wolf. So he's filming Teen Wolf the same time they're filming Back to the Future, and he's all pissed off. He's like, I want to be on that movie instead of this B horror film movie. And then he finishes filming, goes back to his TV show, and they say, hey, by the way, these guys need to refilm this whole film because the lead star didn't work out, so they had to reshoot all the scenes, but they want you in it. We'll let you do it, but you still have to do this show without missing any time. So he's literally working 20 hours a day between his TV show and this thing. And then he ends up, both movies come out at the same time. He ended up with a number 1 and number 2 movie, that summer. And it's just like, just that whole story was like that's freaking crazy.
Yeah, Michael J. Fox has written a couple memoirs. Why did we do Tom Felton? We should have done him.
Yeah,
it's so much more fun to talk about.
Next season, Alex.
All right,
next season.
Hard pivot, guys. We're talking about Michael J. Fox.
Back to Potter World.
Yeah, let's talk about how Tom Felton liked to smoke weed with his older brother.
Yeah, so one thing I was happy to see was that Alan Rickman is as cool of a guy as you'd think he would have been. He wasn't just some pompous douche. He said every once in a while you hear about that. Again, how real is that? Because none of these actors ever say a bad word about each other. But it felt like that was probably one of the more honest stories. Again, not that he's being dishonest anywhere, but Alan Rickman was just a very generous guy with his time and working with the kids.
Yeah, I try not to get too sucked in with celebrity lives, because I don't know, it's a great way to miss out on your own life, but it is fun to read about actors that you've seen for decades, and Alan Rickman was one of those actors that I liked from a really young age. I think the first movie I ever saw him in was actually Dogma, the Kevin Smith movie.
I thought with I will watch the Adam, what's that fucking movie book series?
Oh, I know you do. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
I did see that one, but I saw Dogma first.
Okay.
Yeah. I
saw those around the same time, probably, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was just such a high-quality actor. So it was fun when Tom started talking about him, and that kind of dichotomy where he was this really generous, gracious guy who donated a lot of his time to working with the younger people and also working in charity.
To charities and
but he also had this really intense air about him, and talking about how he accidentally stepped on his cloak and stuff and choked him out while they were walking.
One thing that Tom did pick up from him, though, that was kind of a really neat observation, was how the fans expect you to be in character all the time, and how Tom would say he'd have early on in the Comic Cons, he'd have fans yelling at him how dare you do this to Harry, or asking him questions and he's answering honestly, and they're looking like, what the fuck's this? And then he's like, oh, they want me to be Draco Malfoy, and so he realized, they just hop into character, and that's what the fans want me to be, an asshole, essentially, or in character asshole. And
slightly in character, or at least act like it's real. I don't know, he's had that anecdote where a kid asked him
how was it flying on brooms?
Yeah, and stuff like that, and he, instead of talking about how he had to sit in a saddle and hop in the air, and they made it look like he was flying in front of a green screen, he just oh, you never got your letter to Hogwarts? Oh, you'll find out eventually, kind of thing. Which is I don't know, I know we said we're going to kind of go chapter by chapter, but we're kind of jumping around right now. But just it's one of those surface level things, I figured out not to be an in character but not an asshole kind of feel to it when I'm interacting with my fans. But yeah, he finishes up The Borrowers, and I think he's in a couple other smaller projects, and then
nothing major, and he's kind of thinking, oh, I'll drop this whole acting thing, and then basically his agent says, oh, try this out. This is the next big thing coming in, so why don't you just show up to it, because they need all sorts of kids, and this could be something. And he ends up being an asshole to Emma Watson and getting the part. Yeah,
he's a douchey 12-year-old when he first auditions, and Emma Watson's 9, so obviously he wants nothing to do with her, so he kind of their first interaction's pretty negative. And
quickly going back to the green screens and flying on the brooms, I had a funny quote that had me laughing out loud.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is him talking about how difficult it was sitting all day on these bicycle seats on these brooms on a green screen, and basically they had different balls to look at, like tennis balls or whatever, and you had so here we get into it. When the first assistant director shouted dragon or bludger, you had to look at the tennis ball like it was, well, a dragon or a bludger. Sometimes there would be more than one tennis ball up there, and as one looked very much like another, after a while they gave us more individual objects to stare at. We chose pictures of something or somebody close to our hearts. Daniel Radcliffe had a picture of a particularly beautiful Cameron Diaz. I chose a picture of an even more beautiful carp. I mean, there's no competition. I was really? Cameron Diaz versus a carp. Yeah. And carps, for those of you who don't know, are kind of at least here in America, the trash fish of the country. Nobody likes carps. I mean, granted, Europeans, I get it. Russians, especially, really love their carp. Don't know why, but I digress.
Yeah, it's one of those things he comes back to just nonstop is how much he loves fishing.
Yeah, his
He
one
gets a little
brother
silly.
always took him fishing and bailed him out a couple times from getting in fights fishing and all that stuff. And hey, I guess everyone needs a hobby.
Yeah. Two things he comes back to nonstop is how much he likes Emma Watson and how much he likes fishing.
Well, yeah, so we get a bunch more anecdotes from his time in Harry Potter and his in between filmings, and
Yeah, he covers. He has at least one story about all the actors. I think the person I think he missed Mad Eye Moody, but that's about it.
yeah, he didn't really have a lot with Daniel Radcliffe so much. It was more the actors he was most closely associated with. So like the Alan, Snape and Lucius Malfoy and
Oh yeah,
Crabbe and Doyle and
yeah, he goes for a while on Jason Isaacs playing his TV or his movie dad.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, there are some things I wish he had gone into a little more detail over. Like he really glazes over how the actor who plays Crabbe got arrested and isn't in the final movies.
Yeah, and again, I get why
like
he's not getting too deep into that because that's not him and he doesn't want to speak bad against stuff. But again, it's just one of those deals where it's like a little bit, not so much dirt, but depth would have been nice to these anecdotes and these stories.
Yeah, and he also, the story tells about the stuntman who gets injured and paralyzed for life while filming the movie, and he kind of uses that story instead of like talking about like, oh, like there's a brief like learning about your own mortality thing, but he kind of makes it all about him because then like he starts talking about the charity that he and Daniel Radcliffe do where they play like a Quidditch game every year for charity. And
Yeah,
it's like,
that was
he uses
kinda...
as an opportunity to be like, look how great of a guy I am.
Yeah, that was a really cringy section there.
I was like, oh wow, something real, something dramatic is happening, and then it's just like, we get together and play, and my team always wins.
Okay, so let's jump towards post Harry Potter here, and basically he gets part real quick after that, which he's got a major role and gets a fair amount of money from in Hollywood there with what's his face.
Yeah, the Planet of the Apes, like the first of the new series.
Yeah.
He's like, it was really the only time I was offered a role without having to audition, which, judging by all the stories he told about his auditions, that's probably a good thing.
It probably helped him.
Yeah.
But that obviously went nowhere too fast, and he didn't get to continue with that series. And
yeah, he just kind of settled into the grind of trying to carry on your career after having the biggest role of your life.
And his girlfriend, who the whole way he met her was kind of cringy, and his dating stories were always very cringy. She was the one that was driving him to keep working, and he's like, yeah, I was just content being a pothead on the beach surfing. And she'd be, going to my agent saying, get him more roles. And eventually, he's got a drinking problem and a pot problem. And he admits it, but he doesn't admit it. Again, so, here we are getting towards the end here. And, it's like, part of it, it's like, hey, they're trying to help him before it becomes a real problem. Before he really throws away his career. And he's just saying how pissed off he was. And I get it. The facility they put him in was probably the wrong one.
Yeah, it sounded like... I don't know. I don't want to. Like everyone has different levels when it comes to addiction. I mean, it sounded like he was well on his way to hitting that point, and they were definitely trying to do some intervention there. Sounds like they chose a place where it's kind of like this is a high security place because we know you're putting you here against your will. So
except that he was able to just walk out of the place and roam for a full night.
Yeah.
His whole adventure about how he almost died, I'm like, dude, you didn't almost die. You're walking along a highway in California. Someone would have found you.
Yeah, and also, like, it's kind of weird because it also just, like, comes out of nowhere. Like, this whole addiction story. Like, he hinted at it with some of his talking about smoking weed in his trailer and stuff. And, like, marijuana, like, with 3 older brothers, marijuana's always been a part of his life. And he's been smoking it since he was a very young child. So, it kind of, the intervention and the running away from rehab was like this like huge like whoa, that escalated quickly. It's like I don't know if he himself had written that part or if it was like the ghostwriter like really just like honed in on that one story, because it's like the final quarter of the book is all about his addiction, and there wasn't a whole lot of build up to it. It felt like it felt very rushed.
Yeah, and again, it would go bounce between I have a problem, I didn't really have a problem. It was overblown. Oh, but then it's like, but I was having a problem with the drinking. I never smoked too much pot, and I only had a few beers. But then you go into a story of how he drink all night, then go straight to an audition, hungover, and still drunk usually. It's like, dude, you have a fucking problem. I mean, he's like, it sounds like you're doing that every night.
Yeah, it's I don't know. This was ghostwritten. I'll just say, it sounds like the ghostwriter's like he probably got like a really in-depth story. And then, like, he wrote it, and obviously Tom probably gets to approve whatever's there, so he probably went through it and took out a lot of the backstory behind it. Like, he's like, because, like I said, this is all very surface level, and, like, this story is the first time, 250 pages in, we get something that feels like a real, actually relatable story about a struggle that a lot of people go through, and it really feels just glazed over. Like this is a huge moment in his life.
I do wonder if part of it is
part of it.
He didn't want to talk about I gotta imagine a lot of the problems probably started towards the tail end of the Harry Potter films. Because I know like Daniel Radcliffe he was having a major alcohol problem in the last couple of films.
Yeah, I believe didn't they have to have an intervention for him during filming or something like that?
Something like that. I forget the details.
I mean, like if he talked a little bit about that, could have been good foreshadowing of his own struggle.
Well, I kind of wonder if he was, or someone was saying you can't talk about that. Again, because all the Harry Potter stuff, it's all whimsical stories. There's nothing, that's saying, hey, no, there were some real problems here. It was all, like the worst thing he talks about is choking out Alan Rickman, which, again, it's more of a whimsical, like, whoops, we're a bunch of idiots.
Stepped on your robe.
Yeah, stepped on your robe. It was, but yeah, so I feel like that was probably had to get cut out. Because again, there's some powerful people that want, we want zero controversy about these movies and this franchise.
Yeah, there's probably some attorneys that looked over this book too and are like, we're taking that out, taking that out.
That could be that. They could have ruined
some.
Maybe it wasn't the ghostwriter. Maybe the ghostwriter wrote this awesome 400-page novel, and
it probably ran through a bunch of PR lawyers, and representatives, and they're like, we're wording this all so even with the stories where there's a lot of, it could be a warts and all story, but we're wording this so that you come out in the best possible light and that you were just struggling, because he glazes over his addiction, he glazes over his failing relationship, he glazes over, like his struggles leading up to rehab, he glazes over getting kicked out of his second stint in rehab because he got caught in a female member's room, and even
though there was nothing sexual going on,
he just was trying to check in on her. That's why he snuck in late at night to hang out with her. Absolutely, we're freshly single and in rehab. What are you gonna do, right?
Yeah. One thing I pissed me off is the whole time he's acting like he has to work. He has to do these acting gigs to pay the bills. And I'm like, what the fuck happened to all your Harry Potter money?
Spend it on BMWs.
I mean, yeah.
What else
the BMW that his girlfriend's dad had, but he had the better model. Then he wanted to make sure everyone knew he had the better model.
Yeah.
Because he had more money. But again, it's like, seriously, he has 8 Harry Potter movies. He probably never had to work another day in his life. I mean, he doesn't have Dan Radcliffe or Emma Watson money, but
he's probably got Rupert Grint money.
Yeah, that's his name. There we go. Ron, he's probably got Ron money. Yeah. He's going on about how he doesn't know what to do with himself, and the whole time, like, what's wrong with professional angling? That's a route he was saying that him and his brother were thinking about going. He could totally pull that off even now. To say, who's that guy on Nessun? The Charlie.
Oh, Charlie Moore.
Charlie Moore. I mean, if that guy can freaking do it, I mean, we're talking about a moron on TV. Tom Fella could be the British version of that if he wanted to be, and people would watch it.
Yeah, like Michael Palin does travel documentaries.
Yeah,
he's a little far cry from Monty Python, but he loves it. He gets TV companies to pay for him to travel the world.
Yeah, and then like I ask myself, is he really so lazy that without his now ex-girlfriend Jade there, he would have found nothing to do with his life between his whatever he's doing now in his rehab sense and from Harry Potter? It's like other than surfing and smoking pot. I mean, yeah, I get he went through a depressive stage, and he still battles depression. But it's like dude, you got enough money, you can do whatever you want. If you don't want to act anymore, don't act.
Yeah, I think he was going like I said, he was trying to cast him in the best possible light, and I think he was giving her credit for a lot of his drive, which is fine. Like your significant other tends to be a source of inspiration for you, and someone who can push you and challenge you in those sort of ways. So I think that's kind of what he was going for with talking about that aspect of his life.
Yeah, but again, I felt that it was almost insensitive, yeah, especially for someone that, I mean, I'm not a state employee. I don't work my ass off, but at the same time, I paycheck to paycheck for so long, and something bad happens where I say I need to be forced into a rehab center. Can't pay for that. It put the family in a situation where they're no longer able to live paycheck to paycheck. They're whatever, and it's like, dude, you got such a cushy life, and
yeah, you had other people pay like $50,000 for you to spend a day at a rehab facility.
Yeah, and it's like,
I mean, you're supposed to spend like a couple weeks there, but you ran away after a day. They probably didn't give you a discount.
Yeah, there's no refund for that if you run away. I mean, so it just, again, I get he was angry and he was depressed and he was self-medicating with pot and alcohol. And it's, again, maybe it's the ghostwriter, maybe it's the lawyers, maybe it's just Tom's storytelling to the ghostwriter, but kind of like, I just felt kind of like, fuck you. Fuck you and the high horse you rode in on.
Yeah, I was through most of the book. My general feelings were just kind of like a little bit of anger. I was like, why is this here? Like, what is the point of this book? This is just for diehard Potter fans and nothing else. This book has really nothing to offer any of your average reader, like your average person, average Joe. This is you humble bragging about your charmed
humble bragging
life.
in the least humble way.
Yeah. He's trying to do these things where he comes off as relatable. He's talking about his fishing. He's talking about how he was a scoundrel at school and he was a teacher's worst nightmare. And it's like, but also it's like you were in school for a week, then you went to film one of the biggest movie series of all time, then you went back to school for a week and kind of bounced back and forth, which is another reason I think this is ghostwritten, because he soundly rejects his education. And like I said, writing is very hard, and you are clearly not a fan of sitting in front of a computer and typing out like a 5-paragraph essay, much less a 300-page book.
You probably use a typewriter.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's a quill pen. And like I said, it's fine if you're a surfer and a carp fisherman, but don't try and pass this book off as your life story. It's your life at a very surface level. These are things that people probably would know about you had you not said anything.
Yeah, these are Comic-Con interviews and just normal interviews at the Oscars kind of thing. Yeah, this isn't necessarily anything that's going to be earth-shattering. There's no deep secret. This isn't Spare from the royal family, dropping some dirty secrets here. Yeah,
this isn't Keith Richards writing a book where he spends an entire chapter making fun of how small Mick Jagger's penis is. Like, you're not getting a lot of inside information here.
No, and again, I didn't expect it, but one thing that, at the very end of the book, he had a kind of a bonus chapter, is after the first edition went out, he did a bonus chapter, and he talked about how when he goes to Comic-Cons now, people, all the Potter fans have read his book, are able to separate him from Draco, and how much of a relief that is. And and it's like, okay, so kind of gave the purpose to the book there. I don't think it was an intended purpose, but the unintended consequence of, oh, hey, I can separate myself from my character finally. And, that probably has helped him with some of his depression and his anxieties and, having issues with his different career choices in the future. So,
yeah, that was kind of I think his life lesson from writing this book and, his stints in rehab was, I don't have to be pushing myself to become an A-list celebrity. I'm at a point where I can sit back and only go for the movie roles that appeal to me. And, well, that's nice. I like that. That's actually that's relatable. A lot of people wish they could do that. Yeah, that's wonderful you're able to do that.
Yeah, his conclusions there, and just saying, hey, I can be me now, and people know me for me instead of me being some kid they saw for 30 minutes on a screen over 8 movies.
Yeah. I mean, that last little, lost chapter thing is just more shitty anecdotes. It's just a list of different celebrities he's been mistaken for, like Aaron Paul and Eminem.
Yeah. Again, he needed more than 100 words to just get his word count up. I mean, that's all he really needed for that lost chapter. So he had to add some fluff in there. But yeah, that was Beyond the Wand by Tom Felton and whoever his ghostwriter is. Final thoughts, Alex?
Before I get into my thoughts, I want to play a little game with you.
Oh, okay.
So I was marking things up. I was marking this as read on Goodreads, and I decided to read through the reviews. I want to play a little game. So I found all these reviews are either going to be 5-star reviews or 1-star reviews.
Okay, how many reviews are there?
There's 4 total.
4 total?
I found shorter ones. I was going to do some of the longer ones, but then I'm like, I don't want to bog this down by reading aloud.
Okay, so we're doing. So for those of you who have heard of it, this is kind of a 300. Was it 52 or 72?
72.
372 pages. We'll never get back. They do these little competition things, reading bad books that they pretty sure they're not going to like, but they read them just to make fun of them. They do like the riff tracks, and they do
Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah, so they're making fun of movies. So they did a book version, and it's quite hilarious. I'd check it out.
If we did it like they did, I would definitely do the have fans submit fake foreshadowing chapters and try and guess which one's real. That would be so much fun.
Fanfic or real? That would be hilarious. If only we had that size of an audience, Alex.
I know, right?
If only. Maybe someday.
Yeah, but I'm not going to spend 4 episodes talking about Tom Felton's book. I'm sorry.
No, that would have been painful.
Yeah.
2 hours a shot too. With the way these episodes, it went from an hour to like 2 to 4. And
yeah. I also like what they do where they, I might do this in the future, where they find like reviews from different books, and you have to guess whether it's a review for this book or a review for a classic piece of literature.
I don't think I've heard that. I do like the ones where they find someone that rated the book a 5-star on Amazon, and then find other things that they also rated, and you have to guess how many stars and what their comments are on those products.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's so funny. I gotta get back. I haven't listened to that show in a while. I gotta get to it. I actually found a copy of Ready Player One for free, so I can finally listen to their first episodes. I just bounce around. It's great. And then they're like making reference to books I have no idea.
Yeah, I've been going through chronologically. I've only read 2 of the books, but you really don't need to read the books because
they do a good job.
Yeah, they do a good job.
They're very well prepared.
And it's a good show. Check it out.
Yeah. Anyway,
after you listen to ours, of course.
Okay, so here's my first review. I can't believe Tom Felton is writing a book. About what? Harry Potter and his experience. Crying emoji. I'm so proud of you, OMGG. We all you are proud of you, Tom. Thank you so much for bringing Hogwarts to us. Already rating your book blank stars, since I know you'll get this perfect for us. Heart emoji.
I'm going to say 5 stars, and that was Emma Watson.
That was 5 stars by someone who goes by M. Okay.
It could be Emma Watson then,
yeah. Here's another one. Someone named Lauren. Tom ran over my dog.
1 star.
Very good. 1 star. She's probably mad because he did not include that humorous anecdote in his memoir.
That would have been or maybe at least the $100,000 check for mental trauma.
This is someone who listened to the audiobook, which, according to the Goodreads reviews, the audiobook is the best way to enjoy this book. This was excellent, exceeded all my expectations, and I loved every second of listening to Tom tell his story. There's something unique about listening to someone who played a character we all grow up to love reflect on how that world changed his own life, not just for our own as fans. So many parts made me tear up. Tom can very well draw emotions, and I loved that. I definitely see myself getting a physical copy and rereading some parts one day.
5 stars.
Damn, I think I made this too easy for you.
I think you did, Alex. This is kind of ridiculous.
And finally, you literally had 30 minutes of screen time. Get over it.
1 star.
Okay. Well, join us next time.
Alex, you pick terrible reviews to try to guess at.
Yeah, I was going to try and throw like a 2-star. I got a 2-star saved, which was like more of just like a summary of what I was thinking of the book. But I might read that one when I get into my actual thoughts. But actually, you asked me what my thoughts were, then I read 4 other people's thoughts.
Yeah, so let's get into your thoughts, Alex.
Well, I think if you haven't been able to tell already, that means you haven't been listening to the show, because I've been pretty open about this, but it's pure fluff. It's really just kind of like
Is it stuffed, Alex?
I would rather read Stuffed than read this book again because
What about The Liar?
The Liar. I'd probably read The Liar. I did give this book a higher rating than The Liar just because I found this book to be a little more just quickly readable. But I don't know. It's a topic that doesn't interest me. Like even in my career as a librarian and as someone who grew up with the Harry Potter books, like the movies. Like I still haven't finished the series. Like I've not watched all the Harry Potter movies. I've not really.
What's wrong with you, Alex?
I'm not really, and never really invested in myself in the lives of these celebrities. Like I'm probably biggest fan of Daniel Radcliffe out of all of them.
He's
But
done some interesting movies since he's.
oh my God, Swiss Army Man is so good.
I don't think I watched.
Oh,
that
he plays a farting corpse. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah,
I saw the
and,
one where he played a white supremacist.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Where he's an undercover FBI agent for going into the white supremacist.
Oh, nice.
Group. That was really intense. That was really good.
Yeah. There's another one where he plays an internet troll, and he's he pisses off the wrong people, and they show up at his house and nail guns to his hands and force him to do a battle to the death with another person. So he's like running around the city with like guns nailed to his hands, and there's like funny scenes where he's like trying to use the bathroom and put on pants without shooting himself in the dick. It's hilarious. But Guns Akimbo, you should check it out. But anyway, it's just a bunch of stories I don't care about. Pure fluff, and then the actual heartfelt stuff at the end is there, and then it's gone so quick, and there's really nothing to learn from it, and I just honestly felt like I wasted 3 days reading it.
Yeah, I felt that this was an average actor's memoir. I said I've read a bunch. I'd read couple that were really good memoirs, and I'm like, oh, maybe this will be a genre I enjoy. And Becky, as I said, had a bunch of famous actors and comedian memoirs lying around, not people that I necessarily liked, but I was like, yeah, I'll give some of them a try, and they were all pretty much garbage. I mean, it was just ghostwritten junk. I think the only one that I really enjoyed or came close to enjoying after this first couple was Trevor Noah's memoir, Born Illegal or whatever it is. So that was. So, even though I don't like him as a comedian necessarily, he actually had some really deep stuff talking about growing up in South Africa as a mixed race kid, which was illegal. So this book, like Alex said, was pure fluff. It had nothing of depth, nothing that a true diehard fan wouldn't have known already. I mean, easy money grab for the major Potter fans. That
I was about to say, this is memoirs like this they're a cash grab. Like they're just there to
his
throw
fame is just starting
celebrities.
to wind down enough that it's like, hey, if you put this out, you extend that slow slide into oblivion a little bit, get a little bit longer, get a little bit more, and then he'll just kind of fade from public memory probably in the next 5 to 10 years, and maybe unless if he pops into another big role again by some big luck, which I doubt he'll do because it doesn't sound like he really has a drive to do that sort of stuff anymore.
Yeah, and honestly, he can just coast on doing fan conventions.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like he does a lot of Comic-Cons, which...
He'd honestly probably make more doing that than he would doing films.
Yeah, I mean, and part of me wants to knock on the actors that do the Comic-Cons and just kind of slide through the rest of their lives doing those, but hey, I mean, that's nothing to knock at. I mean, that's some...
Yeah, well, they're insanely lucrative.
Yeah.
You show up there, you sign some papers, and you walk away with like $50,000 in a weekend.
Yeah, so as you said, not knocking against it. I mean, that's a good gig to get. Yeah, it's not, you're not going to see Brad Pitt ever doing that, but do you really want to end up like Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise and just kind of like hated yet loved by millions? So it is.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see some people that are on Tom Felton's level there, like Ron Perlman does them a lot, I guess, and so Doug Jones, the guy who does all the weird roles in the Guillermo del Toro movies.
But yeah, so it's just kind of a meh kind of book.
Yeah, just read it, set it down, move on with your life.
And one thing that I have to keep reminding myself of, I had been read or saw this somewhere. There's not a lot of people read books, and the people that read books, like I compare myself to you, Alex, or to Becky, and I look at myself, well, I'm only reading 50 to 70 books a year, and in our little competition I'm always in last place, So I'm like, oh, I don't read any, I don't read that many books compared to, on Goodreads. I follow a lot of people that are reading 100 books or 80 books. Most people don't read at all. They don't, or if they're going to read, they only read 1 or 2 or 5 books a year.
I think the average is 12, so about 1 book a month.
Yeah,
but I think
and
the
that's
vast
for people
majority
and that's for people that read.
Yeah, and the vast majority is 0 books.
Yeah, so this is the kind of book that people that are only going to read 4 or 5 books a year are going to read. This isn't for people like me or you who are just reading nonstop. I'm right now. I'm reading 4 books. Well, 5 if you count because I'm reading Harry Potter #2 to the children. But so yeah, I'm reading in earnest 5 books or 4 books right now, and people think I'm weird because I can keep 4 stories simultaneously going in my head, and or I can not read a series for 2 or 3 years, pick up the next book, and within the 10 pages of that book, it's coming back to me, all those previous books. I said a lot of people's brains don't work that way, and so this is the kind of book that's geared towards those people. It's easy to read, not really deep, easy words, small sentences.
Yeah, and it ties into, I think,
the pop culture.
Ties into pop culture. So it's something they can relate to in that manner, because odds are everybody knows who Harry Potter and what the movie series and book series is, and like Harry Potter's another thing that a lot of people who don't read a lot of books have probably read, because that was like the last like huge literary event was when the Harry Potter books were coming out. Like that was a huge cultural movement.
So that wasn't the last one, because you had the Twilight series right after that. That was probably almost as big.
Well, if you compare sales, like it's like 5 to 1.
But how many times have sales like the Harry Potter novels ever been matched even before that?
And also, like, Harry Potter is critically acclaimed, where like Twilight or Hunger Games, which sold less than Twilight. It was consistent all the way through. Those books are beloved from book 1 through book 7, whereas Twilight had its detractors from the beginning, and Hunger Games, they got less and less well received as they went along. And what was it, like 50 Shades of Grey has also sold a shitload of books. It's kind of weird talking about that to pair with Harry Potter, but that was
same audience, just different ages.
I think that was, honestly, I'd say 50 Shades was probably the closest we've come to a full like literary event with that book, but I think that was just because it was like a salacious mainstream book about a topic that not a lot of people know quite a bit about. But yeah, like Harry Potter is.
Alex, you want to tell us all you know about that topic?
Well, I've never read
maybe in another podcast.
Well, yeah, like that was like those books were they changed the world. Like there's no theme park for Twilight. There's no, it's night and day, or a new moon for Harry Potter versus Twilight. So
before Alex, I guess, is into any more cringy.
So I'm just trying to say, like, this Tom Felton's memoir ties in with the Harry Potter fandom.
This is something that people are going to buy, and if you're the kind of person that only reads a handful of books a year, this is the book you're going to pick up. And a lot of those people aren't going to realize the difference between, say, Harry Potter and this book for quality, because they don't read a lot of books. I mean, like, even Becky will comment now, it's like rereading the Harry Potter books, like, these things kind of blow. I mean, they're not as well written as, say, a lot of other classics are. I mean, like, even Neil Gaiman or Terry Pratchett books compared to a Harry Potter book, it makes Harry Potter look like a first grader wrote it, kind of thing. And that's not bashing Harry Potter by any sense. That's just Harry Potter compared to this book that's kind of that same comparison. Just the gulf of quality. Yeah. But again, if you're only reading 4 or 5 books a year, you're not gonna.
Yeah, you're gonna go with the ones that everybody's talking about.
Yeah, and you're not necessarily gonna realize that the quality can be so vast between this and Harry Potter, or Harry Potter and something else that would, I would consider should be more popular, but just isn't, because it's actually deep, and you have to be able to understand a lot of these writing tropes and techniques and all that stuff.
Yeah, the only real technique they used in this book was analogy, because this dude literally compares every aspect of his life to Malfoy's life, and it's really annoying.
Yeah.
I didn't even talk about how annoying that was.
So I have some questions for you, Alex.
Okay.
How did becoming a super famous child actor positively/negatively affect Tom Felton?
Well, it's hard being in the public eye. That puts a lot of pressure on you. You see that with famous children all the time. They grow up and then become little devils. You see Justin Bieber ripping through town in his Ferrari and punching paparazzi when he's 19, for example. I think it positively impacted his life because it made it so money's never going to be an issue in his family ever again, really. But it's also an issue because he's, like, as he was saying, he was struggling to find purpose in his life and what he really wanted to do. And that's a struggle that everyone has to go through in their life. But he was on this whole other level where all of a sudden millions of fans have this high expectation from him.
It's almost harder because he has all this money, but he never, it wasn't for something he was truly passionate about. I mean, yeah, claimed he was passionate about acting, but the book never really read like he was passionate about the acting.
Yeah, I think he always enjoyed it. I mean, it seems like it was a lot of long hours, and he's obviously got some really great memories from it.
Well, I mean, you think, like, say someone like Adam Sandler, the guy would probably didn't have to work another day in his life after his first, like, 3 movies. And yet he's still pumping out movies like crazy. He's got a production company that's pumping movies out like crazy. And yeah, they're not nearly the quality they used to be, but clearly he's passionate about acting and comedy.
Oh man, Hustle was a good movie.
Oh, I'm not saying that they weren't good movies. I'm just saying that they're not getting the same receptions as his early movies, but that doesn't seem to be slowing him down. He's just like, hey, I can break out of that idiot role and do whatever I want. And he's doing it, and he's finding passion. And it says Tom Felton is just kind of like, I don't know what to do with myself. So I said, I don't think he's truly passionate about the acting. It's just kind of this was kind of fun to do, but it's not his passion. Alex is thinking here.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. I think he's got a lot of different interests, and when you have to focus solely on one interest, those other ones go by the wayside, and you can kind of grow to resent it. And I think that might have happened with his acting career because he wasn't able to spend as much time, surfing and fishing and hanging out with Emma Watson.
I still think he should do a Charlie Moore type fishing show for the English version of it.
I would honestly watch an episode of that. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it probably would be. I mean, so it would be combining his acting with his fishing, which again, that would probably maybe reinvigorate him. Because,
like, I don't know, we bashed him a lot, but he does have a certain charm about him, and we were talking about some of those anecdotes fondly. That'd be fun, like where he's just, out fishing. You can get one of the other, you can get Jason Isaacs out there and be like, oh, I'm fishing with Dad. And everyone would be like, oh, this is a great show.
Or him and Daniel Radcliffe can be having wand fights with their fishing poles. And
yeah, they can like have a stage a scene where like Daniel takes out his pole and it's this long, and Malfoy takes out his pole and it's even longer.
Alex, I can't see your hands.
That's why I realized I'm doing this. So I said he's got the longer pole.
Alex,
Get it?
Alex,
the longer pole.
Our YouTube channel doesn't have video yet.
but then later on, like.
And they're both standing on the boat, and one of them falls into the water getting soaked. And
Tom's got a fish this big, and Harry Potter's got a fish that's even bigger.
Was the memoir honest, or did it feel false somehow? Does it feel like it's just pandering and refusing to badmouth anyone kind of thing?
I think he was mostly honest. I think he just omitted a lot. I know, like, sometimes omission can be lying, but it was definitely pandering as fuck. But he's everything's worded where he's giving the image that he wants you to see. Like, he's like, where do I want my imperfections to be? Or what imperfections do I want them to know about? This is not a warts and all, tell-all novel where he, talks about all the awful things that he's done in his life. This is I was bad, but here's some good. But mostly good. And, I made some teachers miserable in school, but I played Malfoy and I worked really hard at it. And I had to get my hair bleached once a week.
Yeah, I felt like the whole thing felt a little off. Like, again, like you said, it was all surface detail and nothing.
Yeah, it's just like, it's disingenuous, I guess is a good way to put it. It's not a lie. It's not the whole tell-all truth. But it's somewhere closer to the middle. Like I said, just surface level.
How has the legacy of Harry Potter affected Felton, and how is it going to continue following him? I think the following bit is going to be the Comic Cons. I think as long as he keeps doing those to get a quick paycheck, that's going to be kind of the legacy that he kind of holds up.
Yeah, if he's ever in a spot where like the movie roles dry up or the TV shows dry up, he can go to cons and answer questions, tell stories, sign papers, and walk away with, his next house payment.
I do think him getting out of, like when he was talking about getting out of Hollywood and going back to England, that helped him a lot. Getting out of that California surfer lifestyle. I think that, as much as he said as fun as it was, when he realized that he's just wasting his life away. And even though he's going home to his family, and it doesn't feel like it's just the days are blurring together, where he's having relationships again with other people and able to, he maybe still surfing in the English beaches, which aren't nearly as nice as the California beaches, but he's able to have real connections with real people again.
Yeah, I think he realized like he's not going to become this massive movie star. Like, I don't know, like Emma Watson's a movie star. Like, she's grown past any character she's gonna play. Like, she's like, you see her and you're like, that's Emma Watson. You don't say that's Hermione. You don't say, oh, that's
they did in that one movie there.
Oh yeah, this is the end.
Yeah.
Or that's Belle from Beauty and the Beast. You see her, and you're like, that's Emma Watson. You look at Tom Felton, you're like, that's Malfoy. And it's like he's an actor who's best known for a specific role. And I think that's the difference, and I think he's, from the way he wrote it, grown into be accustomed to that. And he's going to just take what's given and be satisfied with it, not trying to be anything more.
What was the mood / tone of the story? Did it meet your expectations?
It was definitely a lighthearted tone, just, humorous anecdotes. Honestly, I wasn't expecting a whole lot from this. I was still kind of disappointed. I wasn't looking forward to reading it, and as I was reading it, I'm like, this is worse than I thought it was going to be.
It met my expectations. Yeah. I wasn't expecting anything out of it. I figured it was going to be just the thing. I guess the thing that surprised me the most was how arrogant he often came off. Usually a lot of these actors they'll do some self-aggrandizing, but they try to play it down a little bit, try to sell it a little bit better. Yeah, I've read a couple where they don't do that, and it's just like, you just end up hating the guy or girl later. But this one is just like, you would have thought he would have played it down a little bit. Say, I'm really not Draco, I promise. But then he, like I said, the scene with the Beamer and his girlfriend's dad having the same Beamer, but he had all the extras, and his dad didn't have any because they didn't really have any of that. They don't really have the money to have that sort of stuff. And it's like, dude, you're comparing yourself to your girlfriend's dad. kind of creepy. How does this memoir compare to others that you have read, and does it change your perspective on the Harry Potter series and films?
So I was trying to remember the last memoir I read. I think it was in college, actually. I took a class on memoirs. I read Without a Map, which is about a woman telling her story about how she had a teen pregnancy and she gave her child up for adoption, and kind of her life recovering from that experience. And the other was a book called Black Dog of Fate, which was an Armenian man who just learned about the Armenian genocide later in life because his parents kind of kept that part of their history from him, and he grew to become how that learning about that atrocity changed his whole life trajectory, and he became this huge activist for human rights. So this one, talking about a wealthy child who goes on to a movie career, I don't know, it just kind of rang a little bit hollow. I'd also, I think a book about a specific person. It wasn't written by him, but Warren Zevon's biography was written by his ex-wife right after he died.
I bet that was just
that
riveting.
one hits hard. That's a great book. I'll Sleep When I'm Dead, The Dirty Life and Times of Warren Zevon. That book is really good. It's not a memoir, but he gave full permission, don't hold anything back. That was his last dying thing he said to her. So it's a really good that's a really good story of a person who had a really rough life, and there's a lot of diary entries, so you get that kind of a real genuine feel for Warren Zevon as far as anyone could ever understand that guy. This one, yeah, he's kind of fortunate to have a really good life, and he's the parts where he's most disingenuous is when he's trying to be relatable to people, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, so I thought this was pretty standard fare for a actor, famous person memoir. So, one of my favorite memoirs, which happened to be the first one that I read. It was recommended to me by a friend, Caitlin. It was called Let's Pretend This Never Happened by Jenny Lawson. And basically she's tackling her mental illnesses growing up and as an adult and telling just hilarious stories about her life where she's talking about how embarrassed or humiliated she did something, or how she's embarrassing her husband or child because of her idiosyncrasies. And I mentioned Moab is My Washpot by Stephen Fry, who's, that's his first one where he's talking about his childhood and talking about some really kind of shitty stuff he did and how he abused his body with junk food. But then he would also talk about the great things like his love of reading and language, but he'd go really in depth. I said I've read a bunch of other actor memoirs where it's almost paint by numbers, either be the arrogant asshole or the overly humble, I'm just one of the people and I got lucky kind of things. And this happened to be kind of trying to walk that line in the middle and failed up both sides. As for how it affects my thoughts on the Harry Potter films and books, it doesn't really at all. It's the one quote you said, the guy literally had 30 minutes of screen time. He's a minor character.
He's above minor, but yeah.
Above minor, but he wasn't. He was the lesser bad guy of the three bad guys.
He was the child who never had a choice.
But yeah, I mean, you had he who should not be named Voldemort. You had Severus Snape, and then you had Draco. I mean, it's like it wasn't really that big of a. Again, yeah, he was the Harry's counterpart, which you need in the story, but he was just he was just there. His character didn't really have a ton of depth in it unless if you really read into it. So
yeah, it's all subplot, like seeing his story of how he goes from arrogant child and then you realize how horribly abusive his life is. And Draco's character arc is a really cool thing to see. It kind of mirrors Snape's character arc a little bit, where you see they never really had a choice and some of the things they did were not what they wanted to do. But yeah, I forgot to mention that part about how it affects my view of the Potterverse. I haven't touched Harry Potter in a very long time, and I kind of want to reread the books, but obviously I still got to watch. I got one more movie to watch, and I don't know, since I've been watching them since the first movie came out in 2000, so I don't know if I'll get around to ever finish.
Yeah, I've been rereading.
Never really enjoyed the movies very much.
Yeah, I've been rereading the books mostly because I have kids, and it's like, let's reread the books. And plus, we got the new illustrated versions.
Oh, those are so good.
Yeah, those drawings are amazing.
Yeah, that's that might get me to read them again if I can get my hands on those, because
they're $50 a pop.
Yeah, I had a couple of them in my school libraries, but yeah, they're beautiful illustrations. Yeah. They're so great.
You know what memoirs I would want, either from Daniel Radcliffe or Emma Watson. Those might be worth, especially if they were true tell-alls, or they actually had decent ghostwriters writing in depth, having real deep talks. That might be interesting. Just because I think it would be, especially if they're done right, they'd be so different. Is there that level of fame? I mean, as a 9-year-old or a 12-year-old. How does one even cope with that? If they can find someone that can actually express that kind of thing, that would be interesting. Alex is deep in thought again.
Yeah. No, I see what you're saying. That would be a lot of fun. I don't know if I'd read those, but it'd be cool to see them out there.
Yeah, I said it would be definitely an interesting contrast to what a lot of these other memoirs, these cash grab memoirs are. Where like, you got your 5 minutes of fame, let's extend that for another 30 seconds. These two are just so massive, and they've been massive since childhood, adolescence. They hadn't even hit puberty yet, and they were household names. Well, that's all I got, Alex. What about you?
Oh, that's about it for me.
Have we beaten this dead horse long enough?
Yes, with our wands,
fishing pole wands,
or should I say we've beaten this dead centaur enough
with these carps.
Oh god, this book was terrible.
Okay, that's not nice.
You can edit that out.
So, how do we usually end these things other than my rambling of what we have for social media?
Yeah, you just plug our stuff.
Okay.
And then
one of these days we'll actually record one of these and just edit it in for everyone.
No,
just so it's not me rambling.
It's better when we do it for reels. if you want to call in.
So we have an email, kendallbookworms@gmail.com. We have an Instagram, @kendallbookworms. You can contact us through either. I do all the reading of that stuff. Alex is just a lazy sack of whatever and makes me do all the work.
Yeah.
I'm like Dobby the house elf. Just someone please throw me a sock so I can be free. We have a YouTube channel. No video, as Alex just remembered, but we do have the audio if you want to listen to us through that. We are on all the major podcast apps, Kendall Bookworms. What else we got? Alex has books, or a book still up for sale on Amazon.com.
Yeah. Paul Plimpton vs. Ragnarok, new and updated. And I'll be working on getting the Destroyer series back out there as well very soon.
Yeah, and rate and review us on Spotify, Apple, Podbean, where we are hosted. Please tell us, how do I say that? Please tell us about us to your friends, right? No.
Spread the word.
Spread the word. Damn it. Damn it, boy.
Word of mouth is probably the best way to get our names out there.
Yeah.
And then you guys can all have big listening parties, and you can trash us, and it'll be a lot of fun.
No, don't have big listening parties. All listen to us separately because it helps us with the algorithms.
Well, yeah, just gather in a room, put your headphones on, download it on Spotify.
And on Spotify, I usually post up questions or polls, so definitely participate on those because it would be interesting to see what our listeners think about my stupid questions, or how many times Alex will say like or don't you know?
How many times will Joe say, you know?
Don't you know? So yeah, there we go. You
nice. Know? Yeah, like and subscribe. Well, that was Beyond the Wand. And until next time, I'm Alex.
And I'm Joe.
And this has been Bookworms.
Out.